I want to get to some of the issues affecting voters here in the suburbs, but let's talk about Donald Trump's tariffs. At the time when Donald Trump was elected, you called him a shrewd operator and you said he had a lot of gravitas. I wonder whether you're reassessing your admiration for his leadership style now.
Well, that was in relation to the release of hostages who obviously had been held in a cave network, and he had been able to negotiate that in the run-up to the inauguration. And I thought for those families, for those victims, for those innocent women and children to be able to be released from Hamas was a pretty significant outcome by a president-elect. I don't agree at all with President Trump's approach to the tariffs, and I've been very clear about that. My job as Prime Minister, if I've given that great honour, will be to stand up for our country's best interests. But to be honest, it doesn't matter what President Trump throws at us, whether there's a broader war in Europe, whether we're talking about some conflict in the Middle East or elsewhere, a terrorist attack, heaven forbid, in some part of the world, or a shock to the stock market. The Australian Prime Minister needs to deal with whatever is coming our way. And the problem with our Prime Minister now is that he's just too weak and too slow to respond to these issues and to act in our country's best interests.
What exactly would you have done differently to ensure that Australia got a better deal under Donald Trump's global tariffs?
Well, Bridget, a couple of things. I mean, firstly, when Donald Trump was president a few years ago, we were able to negotiate with the administration for Australia to be exempt from the tariffs. And that was a very significant outcome, but it didn't happen by chance. We had identified, and Joe Hockey's work as ambassador was crucial in doing this, identifying people who could have an influence in the decision around the administration, within the administration. That's exactly what we did, and this Prime Minister just hasn't got any of that connection. There's been no work done in the run-up to what was obviously being announced, and I think for us, the question at this election is who is best able to manage the relationship, who is best able to manage the economy so that we can deal with Labor's cost of living crisis, and who is best able to deal with national security in a very uncertain time. We have the ability as a coalition not just to clean up a bad period of economic management after a Labor period in government, but also to make the decisions to help families and help promote that investment into our economy, which is necessary to create the jobs and the economic activity.
When you announced your plan to get public servants back into the office, members of your party said workers from home had shown a lack of respect. I just wonder whether you think that now, with a bit of reflection, that was an insulting approach to so many young families who really use work from home to take a bit of pressure off their everyday lives.
Well, we all support work from home arrangements, and I've been very clear about that. Our policy applied to public servants in Canberra, but this whole series of lies where Labor had made people believe that somehow it was going to apply economy-wide, it was deceptive and frankly dishonest. So we've clarified our position. I've apologised for the mistake that we've made, and I think, frankly, it's a very necessary part of leadership to demonstrate where you have got it wrong, to apologise. The Prime Minister's never apologised in relation to the broken promise around the $275 cut to electricity prices. People have experienced big cost rises in their electricity prices, never apologised for it. So I do think it's important that where you make a mistake, you apologise, you explain what you got wrong, and we've done that, and we have been very clear about it. So I think it allows us now to concentrate on what issues are important at this election, and I think helping families, helping small businesses, helping our economy grow. I think all of that's important. You know, the core inflation rate in our country, Bridget, is twice what it was under the coalition, which is why people are paying more for groceries and paying more for their everyday items that they're having to find money for out of an ever-shrinking budget. And I want to make sure that we can help families find some headspace, some breathing space, and I want to make sure that we can help families get through what's been a really tough 3 years, and we can do that by managing the economy well.
Isn't it? Other people around the world are feeling that.
Well, Bridget, we have a higher core inflation rate than... Well, that's actually true in part, but we have the highest core inflation rate of any of the G7 nations. So interest rates have gone higher, faster here than in other areas of the world. And as you know, we've had 7 consecutive quarters in this country of negative household growth. So households have gone backwards. That hasn't been the case in other parts of the world, including in comparable economies. And the homegrown inflation that the Reserve Bank has spoken about here is a big part of why we've had a 30% increase in grocery prices. But it doesn't stop there. It's 32% increase in electricity prices, 34% for gas. Rents are up by 17%. I just don't think Australians can afford 3 more years of a bad Labor government, and particularly if it's a Labor Greens government, that will see inflation come back into the system, which will force interest rates higher again. And that's why interest rates will always be lower under a coalition government.
I want to move to mental health now. The government announcing some big investment in new centres, particularly for young Australians. I mean, you would know mental health is a really crucial issue for so many Australian voters. Psychiatrists are urging you to take up this funding, really wanting you to match especially the $90 million investment into 1,200 new mental health workers. Is that something you'd commit to?
Well, in terms of what we've done already that the government hasn't done in relation to mental health, and I mean, this is an issue that we've taken really seriously. As Health Minister, I made an announcement to expand the Headspace network out to 100 centres. We have promised to restore from 10 to 20 the number of sessions that young people, particularly with complex presentations, can receive, and Labor cut that from 20 to 10 services. We announced another $400 million for the expansion of Headspace and mental health services otherwise. So Labor in some ways is playing catch up here.
I think Labor is going to.
They've got, Bridget.
That's right. Look, I think Labor is going to invest in Headspace. I'll just bring you back to the $90 million investment for 1,200 new workers. I mean, workers are crucial, aren't they? You can't get your mental health fixed if you can't get in to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Would you match that investment for more workers into the system?
But that's exactly... Sorry, but that's exactly what we've done with our $400 million investment and with the additional 10 services. So when we talk about those additional 10 services, that means a young person is able to go to see their clinician on 10 more sessions, and that means that at the clinician end, the business model is more successful for them. So, and that's what the clinicians have asked for. They need more services to deal with complex matters, and that actually provides them with more income, more revenue, and more incentive to practice in this area. So we'll invest, and we've committed to doing so. There's a rebranding, just to point out what is a fact here in relation to Labor's announcement. The Coalition had set up 40 centres, and the government is taking those and rebranding them as part of this package. So I'd scratch a little bit further beneath the surface to have a look at what they've got on offer today.
We're in Truganina in Melbourne's west this morning. It's really interesting to hear from people that they can't get good internet out here. So when they're trying to work from home, they can't get on to their connectivity. Their connectivity is really, really poor out here. Would you commit to improving internet services in growing suburbs, in regional areas? What are you going to do about investing in the NBN?
Well, yes, for sure. We are certainly going to provide support to those families, because good internet connection is incredibly important for every family. Our family's the same. Everyone's on their devices when they get home, or they're streaming or doing homework, or doing work online, downloading and uploading all sorts of files. So yeah, I think it's an essential part of everyone's lives now, and making sure that you've got a good connection is incredibly important. We invested a lot into NBN when we were in government, and we'll do that again if we're successful at the next election.
The Australian Retailers Association this morning's raised a bit of concern about your plan to cap international student numbers. They say, in fact, international students are a really vital part of the retail sector. Did you talk to retailers while you were putting this policy together, and does it need to be reassessed?
Well, I mean, just to put this into perspective, this is part of our housing policy, because I want to make sure that young Australians can get into housing, and I want to make sure that young Australians can afford their rents as well, and at the moment that's not the case. So for every 42 students that have arrived as part of the international student program, and we're fully supportive of international students coming to our country, but the number's increased by 65%. So for every 42 international students who have arrived, there's been one rental unit built to provide accommodation. So, of course, every one of those students wants to find safe accommodation, but the trouble is that they're competing with Australians who can't get into housing. So what we've said is that we want to reduce the number and reduce the migration program so that we can get the balance right. We've got a $5 billion program to work with councils to pay for infrastructure like water and road and sewerage upgrades so that we can build 500,000 new homes. And there are other things that we're putting in place as well around housing so that we can get that housing outcome. So I understand the Retail Association and other employers as well who look to that workforce, but we've got a very significant number of people who have arrived over the last 2 years. In fact, 1 million people have been brought into our country over the last 2 years. That's a 70% increase than any 2-year period in our country's history, which in part is what's created this housing crisis. And many of those people have work rights and the ability to work in retail stores and across hospitality and tourism and right across the economy.